And a good Monday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning is brought to you in part by the Law Group. Melissa Gott and her amazing team. We'll hear more from them coming up in a little bit. You can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. And coming up on Wednesday, we will be hosting our final monthly hangout of the year for those that support the show over at patreon.com/Nick Craig. We will be getting together right around 7 o'clock on Wednesday. That's the 17th. We'll be chatting about the latest news of the day, everything that's going on, and looking forward to the Christmas and the New Year, all of that for those that support the show financially. Patreon.com/Nick Craig. If you are not a member of the Patreon, you still have time to sign up for that before our hangout Wednesday night, 7 p.m. We'll send that out on Patreon, and I'll provide an additional email Wednesday for those over again at patreon.com/Nick Craig. All right, as we kick off the show on this Monday morning, no other way to describe it but a tragic weekend across the globe. A mass terror attack in Sydney, Australia during a celebration on the first day of Hanukkah, a shooting at Brown University here stateside, a very prominent actor and a producer here in the United States, Rob Reiner, and his wife found dead. People magazine reporting his son stabbed his father and mother. A whole bunch of crazy stuff going on. So we're going to just kind of walk through. I had a different show planned for today, but just too much going on with all three of these stories. So we're gonna walk through those this morning. By the way, we've got a great show coming up for you tomorrow morning. We will be joined by Representative Brendan Jones from Columbus County. Last week, played clips of him over as he was presiding over that House hearing on inappropriate books and inappropriate literature in children's classrooms within the within the Chapel Hill Carborough City School District. He'll join us exclusively coming up tomorrow morning right here on the Nick Craig Show. So let's start off with the most active scene and situation as a manhunt continues this morning in and around Brown University as a shooting took place a couple of days ago. There was a person of interest in custody. However, that person has since been released as they person of interest. Obviously, law enforcement found out that the person they had in custody was not the individual that they were looking for that committed this shooting that left 2 students dead, 9 others injured at that Ivy League school. So you've got major problems taking place within the town surrounding Brown University this morning, as there is still, in and around Providence, Rhode Island, there is still a mass shooter on the loose as of right now, according to the Providence mayor in Brent Smiley. He said that the evidence, quote, now points in a different direction, and the attorney general for Rhode Island also providing some of those details as well. There was a press conference that took place last night where local officials provided that information and announced that the individual who was a person of interest, Benjamin Erickson, his picture was plastered all over social media as it was seen that he was the individual responsible for this. Local officials providing the update last night. It wasn't him.
Shortly, we will be releasing the person of interest who had been detained earlier today. And the Attorney General can speak a little bit about the rationale for that. But we want to inform the community that that individual will shortly be released.
So that individual will be released, as you just heard there from the mayor of Providence, Rhode Island, the person of interest, the suspect in that case, not in fact the person responsible for it. So you've got 2 students dead, 9 others injured at the Ivy League school. One of the individuals killed was the vice president of the Brown University College Republicans. Her name, Ella Cook, and this statement from the College Republicans of America yesterday. We are devastated to learn of the loss of our Brown College Republican Vice President, Ella Cook. Ella was known for her bold, brave, and kind heart as she served her chapter and her fellow classmates. Our prayers are with her family, our Brown College Republicans, and the entirety of the campus as they heal from this tragedy, a terrible, horrific situation unfolding at Brown University. And really, where we stand right now, it's kind of interesting when you look at a situation like this. There is some surveillance footage that is out, and it doesn't really show anything. It's presumably a guy. It could be a woman, but it appears to be a guy walking around in a hooded sweatshirt. There's no footage of his face, no evidence of or any really defining characteristics whatsoever. And just to kind of take a step back for a second, it's pretty remarkable that in this era of technology, right, with cell phone triangulation, with video surveillance everywhere, some public surveillance from, cities and municipalities and towns, but private surveillance all over the place. I mean, look, most of us, myself included, what do you have on the front of your house? You might have a video doorbell. Most people do. Not everybody, but a lot of people have video doorbells on the front of their houses. They've got Blink or other sort of cameras set up in the perimeter of their property. Almost every single business, regardless of what sector it's in, has some level of surveillance, maybe a couple of cameras outside looking at the perimeter of their facility. We live in an era, not opining whether it's better or for worse, where there is so much video surveillance. There are so many devices that can either take still snapshots or live video. I mean, it would be hard unless you're going out in the boonies, the middle of nowhere, where you are not on some sort of camera, whether it's a traffic camera, some sort of public camera that is placed by government, or private cameras, to not be seen, to not be spotted, right? You remember the situation earlier this year with the shooting of the healthcare CEO by Luigi Mastriani, or whatever the hell his last name was. He did that in the Big Apple. And even with that case, there was a lot of surveillance, and it still took some time for him to be identified by law enforcement and taken into custody. So what we know right now, according to the information that has been provided as of last night at a Sunday night news conference, the state attorney general said that the evidence now points in a different direction, as the previous identified person, 24-year-old Benjamin Erickson of Wisconsin, has been released by by law enforcement in and around Providence, Rhode Island, as that individual had nothing to do with it. CNN observed the FBI at the home of Erickson earlier in the day on Sunday, and obviously that was all precautionary measures to try and figure out exactly what was going on there as they were conducting their investigation. But as of right now, again, nothing really has come up. And so that is where the situation stands right now. It's an odd one. You still have a suspect at large. It's been now 3 days since this shooting took place on Brown University, on the campus of Brown University where this took place. And really the only footage, now I'm not saying this is the only footage that exists, because in all likelihood, there is probably more. But the only images and the only details that have been provided publicly show this is the footage that law enforcement has provided, and what appears to be a man in blue jeans and some sort of brown, black, or gray sweatshirt and a black beanie. You can see him walking down the crosswalk. This is who authorities say is still, and what they say is the most useful information, the most useful surveillance footage of an individual. And for those watching, really can't garner a whole hell of a lot from that, as this footage appears to be, looks like maybe from some sort of intersection or traffic camera, as this individual is walking down the street, presumably after the shooting took place on Friday afternoon at Brown University. Again, 2 students killed, 9 additional injured in what is actively being described this morning as an active and an ongoing manhunt, as law enforcement continues to search for that individuals. The Rhode Island Attorney General said that if there is any additional pieces of video that they could use to show a face, he said, quote, "you'd have it." So that is an indication, at least at this point, that law enforcement doesn't have any defining surveillance footage, any defining surveillance video or pictures that would help lead to the identification. And again, that is very odd. Look at the assassination of Charlie Kirk earlier this year. It was just hours, and that manhunt took a day, but it was just hours before law enforcement had provided a very clear picture and a very clear screenshot of the shooter in that case walking up the stairwell to the location where he would eventually pull the trigger and shoot and kill Charlie Kirk. It is, from a law enforcement perspective and from a kind of a technology perspective, it is fascinating. The situation is horrific, but it's fascinating that there is no better footage that has been turned over to law enforcement. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means just at this point, either the businesses in that area, they weren't open over the weekend, so maybe they haven't had a chance to go in and look at their surveillance footage. A whole plethora of things that could exist. You had people out of town, haven't seen what's on their doorbell cameras, if that exists. It's just very, very interesting that you still have a shooter on the loose. You've got law enforcement and public officials, more public officials in the area saying, the public is not in any real danger, which seems impossible to me. You've got an active gunman on the loose. 2 students were killed, 9 others wounded. The shooter is still on the loose, and the public is being told that you're not at risk. That has always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. We saw the same thing after the United Healthcare CEO was shot. You saw the same thing after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. This immediate, and I get that you don't want the public to be in a frenzy. I understand that. I get the premise here. But this idea, this notion, this concept, this idea that you're not in danger when you've got somebody who has just killed multiple people on the loose, it just doesn't add up. The math does not work on that situation. I guess the analysis is this was a targeted attack at Brown University, so the greater public at large isn't at risk. But just something about that just really rubs me the wrong way. And I think a lot of people, I saw some commentary online last night and earlier this morning from people saying, "What do you mean the public's not in danger? What do you mean that there's no major public concern? You have a potentially an armed and dangerous gunman on the loose, and you're providing information. You're going out of your way during a press conference to say, hey, nothing crazy going on here. Just keep vigilance, but don't worry, nothing going on." I think that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and you see it consistently. I'm not taking a shot. I'm not trying to be critical of law enforcement or anything of that nature, but it is definitely a very odd, a very weird situation. So that is the latest that we've got out of Providence, Rhode Island as of right now. There was, again, a suspect, a person of interest in custody. That person has since been released, and law enforcement, for all intents and purposes, investigators, for all intents and purposes, are back to square one, back to the drawing board in trying to figure this situation out. We'll keep an eye on that. Looks like Fox News says there's an incoming update on their live blog, so we'll jump back to that if we get any additional details on that out of Brown University. All right, let's transition now literally across the globe, heading over to Australia this morning, where a terrorist attack on the first day of Hanukkah, hard to describe it as anything but an attack on those of Jewish faith and those in the Jewish community, has left 16 people dead. That does include the gunman, after a father and son duo. A father and son were the ones that opened fire and shot and killed at least 15 people while an event was happening on Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. So here's the latest on this, again, unbelievable situation this morning. Police say a father and son were the two individuals behind a horrific mass shooting that left 16 people dead, including one of the gunmen, that caused more than 40 people to be hospitalized during a Hanukkah celebration that took place on Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia yesterday morning, our time here on the East Coast. New South Wales Police Commissioner said during a press conference that the attack was conducted by a 50-year-old man and his 24-year-old son. What the hell? Father and son committing this atrocious act of terrorism. The father is dead, according to the police, and the son is in critical but stable condition at the hospital, according to local law enforcement. Now, you'll be well aware that in the country, in Australia, gun laws are very strict. Some of the strictest in the entire world. Outside of a literal communist country, gun regulation, gun restrictions are very, very strict. The everyday average Australian citizen does not have the access to firearms, is not allowed to own firearms. It's an incredibly strenuous, hard process to go through. They got very, very strict gun laws to cut down on situations, well, like this. And I'll just say this right off the top, and we'll get into some additional details on it. Regardless of whether we're talking about a gun, a bomb, a vehicle, a knife, some other sort of instrument, individuals, and I feel that it's important to say this because it's often missed in the greater conversation as individuals run to podiums, run to microphones to try and declare that, oh, this is another situation of gun violence. This is why we can't have firearms. You see it all the time, and it's incredibly disturbing. For individuals that want to commit a horrendous, atrocious act of violence, they will do so. They will do so. You are trying to attribute logic to an illogical situation. And that is something that you can't do, whether we're talking about mass acts of violence like this or anything else. You, as a logical person, are trying to attribute your logic that you have to a situation that defies logic based on its definition. Shooting and killing 15 people. That is an illogical situation. Opening fire on a crowd of individuals as they are celebrating the first day of Hanukkah is an illogical situation. No person with logic conducts that action, right? And so you try to use your brain and logic to work through the situation, and you just can't. It doesn't work. It never will. So this is what's interesting, is what we've learned from officials. The father was a licensed gun owner in the country with 6 legally registered firearms. All 6 of the firearms have been recovered by local law enforcement, with some being recovered at the scene. The others were located and recovered when investigators executed search warrants at 2 separate locations, according to police. The commissioner told reporters Monday afternoon that the father met the eligibility criteria for a hunting license used for recreational hunting. Still unidentified, the father was issued a Category A/B firearm license, which allowed him to possess a long firearms that he registered. So hunting rifles, which hunting is very prominent in a large part of the country within Australia. According to law enforcement there, the commissioner told reporters that license had existed for at least 10 years, saying, quote, "There was very little knowledge of either of these men by authorities. The person was determined to be entitled to have a firearm license, and the person had a firearm license for a number of years for which there were no incidents." This is more evidence backing up the idea here of a terrorist attack, which is the only way you can describe it. 2 improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, were also found at the scene of one of the homes where the search warrants were executed. The IEDs were taken into possession by rescue and bomb disposal units and found to be active. So I guess the thought was maybe they get away with this and commit another atrocious act, or the plan was to use an IED, but they determined they were going to go about it another way. Just a terrifying situation. Police say the victims of the attack that took place Sunday local time in Australia range in age from 10 to 87 years old. The shooting happened during an annual celebration known as Hanukkah by the Sea. It was scheduled to kick off at 5 p.m. local time to celebrate the first day of the Jewish holiday by lighting the first candle on the menorah. The shooting happened around 6:45 p.m. local time. Now, this is important to note. The police say that the attack targeted, that is a direct quote, targeted the Jewish community and is being investigated as an act of terrorism. At least 40 people remain hospitalized after the shooting, including 2 police officers. The agency later confirmed the shooting is being described now as the worst attack on the Jewish community since October the 7th, 2023. That, of course, is the day in which you had the Iranian-backed terror group known as Hamas that conducted the horrific terrorist attacks on Israel, where you had people, these Hamas terrorists, flying over on paragliders, flying over the border to commit an unbelievable acts of violence on individuals. Now, there's some pretty chilling footage that has been released, at least on social media, of the attack in Australia, and it shows the scene as it's unfolding. You've got an individual who jumps onto the scene to tackle. It's not immediately clear whether this is the father or the son. Immediately tackle the individual who has got the firearm and is attempting, and at this point has already shot individuals. A brave civilian jumping into the scene, neutralizing the situation before taking the long rifle. It's not clear whether he shot the shooter here, which, I mean, you could literally see him pull the trigger at the beginning of that video, or whether he just held him at gunpoint before law enforcement arrested him. This is some unbelievable heroic nature here of this guy jumping in, tackling the gunman in Sydney, Australia, as the situation continues to take place. Hard to describe this as anything else but more anti-Semitic violence but across the globe. I mean, and I'm not going to show you some of these pictures and videos that exist on social media because they are some of the most grueling, horrific pictures and videos that I've ever seen. Things that I wish I had not scrolled through social media and seen. I mean, you've got people laying with blood splattered dead on the ground. I mean, just dozens of them. It's a horrendous set of pictures and videos. As anti-Semitism, as the continued push on anything anti-Israel, anti-Jewish community continues to permeate across the globe, and it's a global issue. This is not something that is unique to the United States, and we've talked about it here in the U.S. I mean, we've seen from elected members of Congress discussions and conversations about, being pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, pro-Iranian-backed terror groups. They just don't, and they just seemingly don't have anything else to add to it. And they don't seem to understand that the individuals that they say that they're standing with, the Free Palestine crowd, this is what I guess they want. I mean, I don't say that lightly, but I don't understand what else they believe that this leads to. You've got a country in Australia that has got some of the most restrictive gun control laws anywhere in the United States, or anywhere in the globe, I should say. And you've got individuals that still have access to firearms, in this case, for the ability to hunt for recreational hunting or for food for hunting, and the situation unfolding the way that it did. Now, the identity of these individuals has not yet been brought forth by law enforcement, but there are several pictures, several videos online that very clearly indicate who these individuals are. They appear to be of Middle Eastern descent. I'm not going to show their pictures or bring their names to you. I don't believe that is appropriate at this point in time, but Australian authorities have at least provided some information about the perpetrators, and it would appear obvious that based on their identities, based on their names, and based on what law enforcement at least has, what media has provided, not law enforcement, but what media has provided, would indicate very clearly that this father and son duo are either directly of or are of Middle Eastern descent that carried out this horrific terrorist attack that led to multiple people losing their lives in Australia over the weekend. President Donald Trump had an already announced event taking place at the White House for the first day of Hanukkah yesterday. As you can imagine, you've got these two situations unfolding across the globe. You've got the one here in Brown University, the other in Sydney, Australia. President Donald Trump, during this celebration at the White House yesterday, commented on both. Let's listen into a few minutes of President Donald Trump yesterday.
Before we begin, however, I want to just pay my respects to the people. Unfortunately, two are no longer with us. Brown University, 9 injured, and 2 are looking down on us right now from heaven. And likewise in Australia, as you know, that was a terrible attack, 11 dead, 29 badly wounded. And that was an anti-Semitic attack, obviously. And I just want to pay my respects to everybody. I must say in Syria also, we had an attack in Syria, and we had 3 great patriots terminated by bad people, and not the Syrian government. It was ISIS. Syrian government fought by our side. The new president fought by our side. But I just want to pay my respects to the families. We also had 3 injured, but 2 of them are already out of the hospital, and one's going to be okay. But we lost 3, so it was a rough day. But to Australia and the Prime Minister, to everybody that we know so well, we get along with so well, we have a great relationship. That's a terrible situation going on over there. Think of that. And Brown University, great school. Great, really one of the greatest schools anywhere in the world. Things can happen. So to the 9 injured, get well fast. And to the families of those 2 that are no longer with us, I pay my deepest regards and respects from the United States of America. Thank you very much. It's a very important thing to say. And we mean it. I can tell you in Syria, there will be a lot of damage done to the people that did it. They got the individual person, but there'll be big damage done. And the other, supposedly, they call him a person of interest, so I'll keep it along those lines so we don't get ourselves in any trouble. But they have a person of interest at Brown. And in Australia, you probably read it's been a very, very brave person, actually, who went and attacked frontally one of the shooters and saved a lot of lives. So very brave person who's right now in the hospital, pretty seriously wounded. So great respect to that man that did that. But we're here for a different reason. We're here to celebrate Christmas and to celebrate, and I think today we can first say loudly, we celebrate Hanukkah, because that was such a horrible attack. That was a purely anti-Semitic attack.
That's President Donald Trump at the White House yesterday as a little after 1 o'clock. He was, like many others across the United States and the globe, welcoming in and ringing in the first day of Hanukkah. And he breaks down a couple of different things. You got 2 U.S. soldiers killed in Syria over the weekend as well. A U.S. interpreter also killed as an ISIS terror attack took place. 2 students dead at Brown University. 15 people, 16 total if you include one of the scumbag shooters in Australia. Just a tragic, horrific weekend. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Just a miserable weekend across the globe. And a couple of different angles to take. Obviously, the Middle East stuff, that is interesting. That was in our morning line newsletter this morning. If you're not subscribed to that, I encourage you to head on over there and check that out. You can head on over to the website, nickcraig.com, and there's a box to put in your email address. You'll get that delivered every weekday morning when we're doing the show. Get that delivered to your inbox, and that was on there. 2 U.S. soldiers, a U.S. interpreter killed in Syria by ISIS, the Brown University situation, a whole bunch of just horrific, terrible attacks unfolding over the weekend. And that brings us to our final story this morning, a wild situation out of Los Angeles being exclusively reported. Now, the story is not exclusive, but the some of the information is being exclusively reported by nobody else but People Magazine. Very prominent movie director and movie industry executive Rob and Michelle Reiner were apparently stabbed to death, killed in their own house over, it's not clear when it happened, sometime over the weekend by their son. Yes, by their son. That is what at least People Magazine is reporting this morning. Their headline, Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were killed by their son. It's an unbelievable headline to be reading over there. Reading directly from the article over at People Magazine. On Sunday, December the 14th, around 3:30 p.m., the Los Angeles Fire Department was called to a home to provide medical aid. The LA Fire Department told People Magazine, upon arrival, they found a 78-year-old man and a 68-year-old woman dead. Sources confirmed the victims were Rob and Michelle. Police say that their son, Nick, is 32 years old and is alive and being questioned, noting that no arrests, at least to this point, have been made. But People Magazine reports that the son is the individual who is responsible for this situation. Back in 2016, they spoke to Nick Reiner, who talked about his year-long struggle with drug addiction, noting that it began in his teenage years. He was eventually left living on the streets, in and around rehab. Not a great life at all, and not a great situation at all, which apparently culminated, again, this is just being reported by People Magazine, but I can't imagine they would run this headline without some pretty serious situation, without some pretty serious confirmation of the source that their son, Nick Reiner, apparently killed them. So that is a wild situation as well, unfolding out of Los Angeles. A lot to keep an eye on today throughout the day. We'll bring it to you as we get the latest out of Brown University, out of Sydney, Australia, out of Los Angeles. We'll bring you the latest as we get it coming up right here on the Nick Craig Show. All right, as we round out our pretty miserable show this morning, no other way to describe it, a couple of things to note. The North Carolina legislature is set to be back in session this morning. It is not immediately clear whether the North Carolina House will be in full session. With that, there are still 6 pieces of legislation that sit on the House calendar that do need a vote on a veto override. They include some legislation dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those situations there. Another piece of legislation dealing with constitutional carry across the state of North Carolina. That has been sitting on the House calendar now 4 months. We'll know coming up at 10 o'clock this morning whether it's going to be a skeleton session, which means Just a couple of lawmakers, those typically that are in and around the Raleigh area, make their way there to gavel in, to update the calendar. But this will be the last shot for those overrides before we flip the calendar into 2026 and begin the legislative short session next year. The Senate is also set to convene at 10 o'clock. However, there is nothing listed and scheduled on their calendar this morning. So unless something is added in, not expecting any additional business from the North Carolina Senate for the remainder of this year. House, a couple of items calendared, but we've seen this over the last couple of months. These items are calendared, then they are kind of tabled and then pushed on to the next date. So we might also learn this morning from both chambers when they expect to come back in 2026. We'll be watching that unfold here just after 10 o'clock. I'll have the latest on social media. Give me a follow over on X and Facebook. And then if relevant, we'll have it coming up for you tomorrow morning right here on the Nick Craig Show, where once again, we'll be joined by a Columbus County representative, the House Majority Leader in Brendan Jones. He made some pretty prominent news over the last couple of days. We covered it last week, a very explosive hearing in the North Carolina General Assembly over inappropriate books in classrooms across the North Carolina. That hearing was particularly focused on the Chapel Hill, Carborough City School District. He'll join us coming up tomorrow morning. We'll talk about these books. We'll talk about school districts in open defiance of state law. We'll have that coming up for you tomorrow morning right here. Quick reminder for those that support the show financially, we'll have our final Patreon hangout of 2025 as we get ready to flip the calendar over. That is coming up for you Wednesday night, 7 p.m., patreon.com/Nick Craig. You can get in and support that for as little as $5 or $10 a month if you believe that you are getting some value from the program. Patreon.com/Nick Craig. Look forward to chatting with everybody Wednesday night as part of our Nick Craig Show monthly hangout. Again, that coming up Wednesday night. All right, as we round out the show this morning, I do want to let you know that it's only made possible by the amazing team, Melissa Gott and her group over at the Law Group here in Wilmington. And I want to let you know that when legal challenges arise, whether good or bad, make sure you put your trust in the Law Group right here in Wilmington. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across the eastern half of our state. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense. If that's the case, the Law Group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. They're not some big national law firm. They're located right here in Wilmington. They live and play and work in our community, located in downtown Wilmington, and a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. Give them a call for any legal challenges across eastern North Carolina, 910-251-6088, or their website, lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. Appreciate Melissa Gott and her amazing team for their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. Well, that's going to do it for a Monday edition. Don't forget, you can join the program live each and every weekday morning, 7 a.m., streaming live on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, or available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be chatting with Representative Brendan Jones coming up tomorrow morning right here on The Nick Craig Show.